The following podcast is a W2M Network original production. Visit W2Mnet.com for all of our other great podcasts, plus news, reviews, articles, and opinions from the worlds of wrestling, video games, football, and entertainment.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the latest episode of This Week in the AFL. Alongside my co-hosts, as always, Eric Watkins. I'm Stephen and Erik. How are we doing tonight, Eric?
Doing pretty good tonight. Last week was yet another quirky week. We can say that when it comes to the AFL world.
Yeah, we took off last week for other reasons. And it was the week before, last time, we were talking about how Sean Brackett was going to just be so dominated by the sole defense. Then he goes out and throws 5 touchdowns. They lose by 1 point. And I wanted to come on the show last week. Had we done one, I'd be like, Eric, what the hell just happened? Like, Sean Brackett just threw 5 touchdowns against the sole defense. But here we are, talking about how you and me are pretty much right about Sean Brackett. Mm-hmm. I mean, we can't, and I'll get to this a little later, how we cannot blame it all on him. It's just the numbers speak for themselves. He had a very crappy game against Cleveland.
Yeah, I mean, 3 interceptions, 1 in the red zone. That never helps. But on top of that, when your defense can't get off the field on 4th down and can't make a stop after 9 possessions, that does not help your cause.
It was just an ugly game all throughout as the Valor just got dominated by Cleveland on offense, defense, special teams, you name it. I remember what the final score was. I know it was a blowout win for the Cleveland Gladiators.
59-35.
Yeah, and then even in the NFL, that's a blowout loss. 24-point loss in pretty much any sport, because you could say blowout, bad loss. Don't want to lose that by that much. So, yes, and last week against, I believe it was the week before they played Philadelphia, we were talking about it. No, it was against Philadelphia. Greg Carr was a big factor. 4 touchdown catches. And then against Cleveland, I was like, where's he at? Well, what happened to him? I mean, he went from this big guy to nothing.
No, he was pretty much silenced because, again, Cleveland decided, okay, we're going to lock him down because we know Washington hasn't had a great stretch. Spider-Man, Roger Jackson, he's just sort of been forgotten about. We'll see if the two of them can beat us, and, well, they really couldn't.
No, and going up to that game, I had seen a few highlights from Spider-Man Jackson. I thought, wow, maybe this guy could be the next guy. Because you have Mike Washington on IR. T.T. Tolliver's went on IR, so that's a huge loss for Washington. Greg Carr is nowhere to be found. I'm thinking, okay, the next guy up has to be Roger Spider-Man Jackson. And again, nothing from Spider-Man. It just keeps piling up for Washington. The crap. Just keep piling up for Washington.
I mean, even with expansion teams, you can get a good roster together initially, but your main concern is depth, and that's really started to show over the past 3-4 weeks. And if you don't have depth at these positions to where you can get into a next man up situation, you're going to lose, and you're going to keep losing.
That is a good point. Very good point. And as for Cleveland, once again, they used a new guy to dominate another team. 1 week it would be Larry Bracken scoring all these touchdowns. 1 week it's Quentin Sims. This week against, I don't remember who it was. I know there's one guy for Cleveland that scored like multiple touchdowns in this game. I can't remember who it was, though.
Well, I know, was it Preston? Michael Preston.
That's it. Michael Preston had a game.
He had a game. Larry Beavers, credit to him on special teams, really showing up as well.
New addition Larry Beavers, yes.
Yeah, things are just... I want to say that things are clicking, but against a team in Washington, they're now, 1-7?
1-6.
Or 1-6. This still may be a little bit of that fool's gold going on here. So it's good, but I'm still keeping things tempered.
You can't speak too. I wanted to say the same thing, then I realized they beat the Valor. Everybody's beating the Valor except the Brigade, and they've only met once, and that was in week 1 when Chase Cartwright started and had them down 34-6. So when the next time the Brigade and Valor meet, we're going to see a different game. But that's another show for another time when they do eventually do play. So what was his name? I do not remember. I should have had this down. Michael Preston. That's it.
Mm-hmm. Michael Preston
stole the show for the Gladiators. Another game, another guy. Arvin Nelson's finding multiple times in the end zone. What was funny about this, though? I don't know if you watched the game. I did. This actually made national highlights on one of these bigger sports outlets. Michael Preston scored twice, and on each play, he went up to this little boy and tried to give him the ball. The little boy shoved the ball back to him. I don't want that ball. Just a little.
I did see that. He was probably a Valor fan. I mean, family's raising him right. You don't take balls from the opponent. It's a bad juju.
And then this is what I said to start off the show. You can't really blame the interception on Brackett. I mean, the first one bounced off the net and into the arms of whoever intercepted the ball. It was Rayshon Kaiser had the first interception.
Mm-hmm.
And another one was on a tip pass, and the other one was just crap. But the first two, you can't blame on Brackett Brackett threw a bad pass. He didn't throw a bad pass. It's just bad luck for Brackett. But the numbers do speak for himself. He did throw in 3 interceptions.
Yeah, 3 interceptions. To his credit, another 5 touchdowns, 21 for 37 on the night. But while they weren't bad interceptions of themselves, they were just bad timing that gave Cleveland momentum. Like, for example, the first one. You're in the red zone, trying to get your first points of the game. Cleveland, to their credit, great coverage. The ball bounces. It looked like it bounced off of the iron, not even the net. Kaiser, right there, Johnny on the spot to pick it up. Cleveland converts that into another touchdown. Then you have another good situation, momentum going, tip pass, interception, momentum's dead. Momentum's dead. That seemed to be the theme. The best they could do was match Cleveland score for score, but when they were getting something going, just went kaput. Yeah.
He did have some impressive game. He did throw 4 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. But like we said, the numbers speak for themselves. It was a pretty bad performance by Brackett and the whole team altogether.
They've now 6 in a row losing in. I don't see where anything can get better. I don't see where they could even win another game the rest of the season at this rate. I really don't, because things have gone from, okay, you're competitive, then Eric Meyer out. Bernard Morris leaves. So you bring in Brackett. And then receivers, Tolliver, IR, Washington, IR, Carr, Richardson, or Jackson, former Sharks. For some reason, they've disappeared. So who are you going to turn to step up? I'm not seeing any names.
These are very bold points, but very good points as well. And another thing is, you have Meyer, you have Tolliver, you have Washington IR. They're out for another 4 weeks. And then you look at the defense. I mean, you have Tracy Belton. He was top in the league in interceptions last year with the Soul. Mm-hmm. Now he's disappeared too. I mean, it's just this whole team is it's insane how this team full of talent could have lost 6 in a row, but losing every game the rest of the way. If that happens, I'm going down to Jacksonville. I'm buying Eric a steak dinner.
Hey,
bold prediction.
I mean, seeing who they have left and how many times they're facing him, you're halfway through the season. They're 1-6. Look at the rest of their schedule. Okay, they might steal one late if Meyer comes back, but at that point, he's out another, 3 to 4 weeks? You go into that, his first game back, say you're looking at 1-8, maybe 1-9. It's going to take time for him to shake off a teeny bit of rust, not to mention who is he going to throw to right away. Then right there, you're sitting 1-9, 1-10. What are you going to do? At that point, Washington's just going to throw stuff against the wall. It's not going to work, but they're going to do it.
I mean, at that point, I believe at 1-10, they'd probably be, unless Cleveland stays at the bottom of the barrel as well, and he does bad for the rest of the way. I do believe at 1-10, Washington would be eliminated from playoff contention, and Meyer would be coming back to nothing. But we will see. We are halfway through the season, ladies and gentlemen. Week 9 is over. We are now halfway through. We have a special segment next, after the commercial coming up in about 10 minutes, where I saw an article today on Twitter from marinefootball.com, and I was like, give me an idea. We'll get to that a little later. For now, any final thoughts on the Gladiators whopping the Valor?
Have a little bit of confidence that you score on your first 9 drives, but don't get overconfident. Cleveland is still neck and neck with Baltimore for what would be the 3 seed. You got to pull away at some point.
Yes, sir. Good point, though, and I will remember that. Erik thinks the Valor could lose every game the rest of the way. I will remember that.
Yeah, I'm going to remember that steak dinner. You ever heard of a place called Ruth's Chris?
I have not, but I'm sure I will in a few months.
Oh, yeah.
So the Cleveland Gladiators beat the Washington Valor in Week 9 by a final score of 59-35. I think it's the biggest margin of victory this season by any AFL team. Pretty sure. So now we move on. The Storm hosted the Brigade on, mind you, the first ever arena football game broadcasted live on Twitter. Thank you, Twitter, because with Facebook, we have to pay.
Ugh. Monumental sports and entertainment. I love you. I know what you're trying to do, but you're killing me, Smalls.
Oh, man, I hear that all the time. And, of course, for the, 6th consecutive game now, the Storm have done what they've done the past 6 games, pretty much. Dominated their opponent with the help, of course, of quarterback Ryan Hippard and wide receiver Joe Hills.
Now, granted, credit to the Brigade for making it interesting. I thought it was going to be a total blowout after the first quarter, especially Hills getting into the mix not once but twice, including his first ever career touchdown run. But, yeah, Baltimore did not go down without a fight. Granted, they had opportunities the final 30, 40 seconds to make it even closer on themselves, but it wasn't meant to be.
Yeah, I didn't watch this game. I went back and looked at the recap on InsideTheArena.org, courtesy, of course, Eric Watkins. And I looked at the highlights, and I believe Joe Hills had 2 touchdowns in the first quarter. One was a 48, 49-yard touchdown. I was like, damn, Joe Hills doing Joe Hills things. And then I saw that the Brigade had actually taken a lead, 7-6. But by halftime, it was 33-14. I was like, oh, okay, here we go, Storm football at its finest.
It really was. Things really calmed down. The Storm slowed down the pace, very methodical, very short passes, spread the field going outside. When Baltimore started to hit them deep a little bit, that's when they took control. Because even at 33-14, the Brigade scored the next 2 touchdowns.
That's right.
That made it interesting. So Tampa Bay was like, okay, shift our defensive schemes, little bit of coverage, more pressure on Carden. That stemmed the tide.
And if I'm not mistaken, one of these was an interception at the goal line. I don't know if it was returned for a touchdown or if they returned it into the red zone. But that was following a touchdown to make the score 33-21 or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
I have my notes here, just I wrote down.
Yep, a big interception, and keep in mind, this was Baltimore getting a little bit of payback because it was an interception right at the end of the half. And again, credit for them for fighting, taking advantage, turning the turnover into 7 points, but you have to do that on a consistent basis, and the Brigade aren't there yet.
And the way and of course the Storm did win. They're sixth win in a row now.
Mm-hmm.
Storm beat the Brigade, 6th win in a row. But this is what has me saying the Brigade, as of right now, the Brigade would win the 3 seed over the Cleveland Gladiators. They know how to play. At least they know how to play Tampa close. Cleveland, not so much.
Not so much yet. And this is the hard thing about with Baltimore and Cleveland, especially because they played each other, and that was decent, but nothing really overwhelming. I think Baltimore should relish this now, because if it happens to be Brigade Storm in the 2-3 in the playoffs in Tampa, that one could get ugly. I only see Tampa Bay getting better from this point forward.
Really? And I don't want to go too much into the playoffs because we still have 2 months of football left. I could see if this were, say, next week, the semifinals going on, we had the Brigade and the Storm, I could see it. I could see a little upset possible.
I don't know. And I mean, it's not too far-fetched to think playoffs, because thanks to that Storm win, Philadelphia is clinched. They're the first ones. We know they're in.
That's right. And with the win against the Valor this Saturday night, the Storm can clinch a playoff spot. So we'll already have 2 of our 4 playoff teams with 2 months left. I know a lot of people listen to this and say, that's sad. That's why the league's dying. I want to hear it. That's just how it is.
Yeah, we could talk about some of these other leagues and things going on, and it's like, we're at least stable. Thank you very much.
Oh yeah, very, very stable. No, I don't know much about Brigade football history. From 2008 to 2016, I didn't watch any of it. I didn't watch none of it. You were the big one. You watched a lot of it from then until whenever. Did Randy Hippert and Joe Hills play together in Tampa before they went their separate ways?
No.
Oh, they didn't?
No. If they did, it was very briefly, but Hippert was part of that whole big quarterback shuffle, and he wasn't even really the man up until a couple of years ago, because they had a completely different team when they got to the Arena Bowl and lost to Spokane come 2010.
Oh, well, I was going to ask you to tell me a little bit of history about the chemistry between Randy Hippert and Joe Hills. But if they never played together until this year, I guess there's not much to say. I do want to go into this. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say no, but that's just the chemistry that Hippert gets with his receivers. I mean, if you look at what you would consider in the NFL a traditional drop-back passer, Hippert very quickly reads the defense, quickly gets the ball out of his hands, quickly finds the open man, and Joe Hills loves to take advantage of that. He works so hard at getting open so that no matter who's throwing it to him, he can have himself a good day. Quarterback can have himself an easy day.
Good point. I know when I showed you this last night, you were pretty excited about this. The Jacksonville Sharks signed former Storm quarterback Jason Boltis. I just want to know your reaction to that.
While I'm curious on a lot of different behind-the-scenes levels, actually going on the field I like because Boltus, very experienced, spent time Utah, Spokane, Tampa Bay. So he's faced off against some very good competition, even when, and a lot of people will call this AFL 2.0 was at its peak. Yes, he was a bit of a journeyman, but he always found a way to have a job. And I think the Sharks, definite boost at the quarterback position, because Wilding and Fleming's good. Some of his performances, especially early in games, I'm not entirely sold. Maybe this is what Jacksonville needs as Sia Burley is getting his feet wet as a head coach. Again, with how they're playing this season, they don't really need any help, but this is going to help.
It will help a lot, for sure. And if you want to hear more on this move by the Sharks, you'll listen to the next NAL Now podcast following this one over on W2M.com, iTunes, wherever you listen to all the W2M podcasts. But coming up next, I saw this article. It was interesting. So we're going to do a little experiment. We're going to look at it. We're going to discuss. We're going to debate. We're going to have some fun. On the other side, you are listening to This Week in the AFL. All right, Erik, we're back.
Alrighty.
All right, welcome back, everybody. Apparently, producer Sean Garmer wasn't running commercials tonight because he has to watch this important U.S. men's national team game for this week's Soccer to the Max midweek report, I guess, Erik. You were part of that.
Yep, it's our midweek. We pushed it back to Thursday because of the World Cup qualifier, and I'm slightly nervous. I'm just going to say that.
All right, so we are now commercial free on this podcast, and we probably have a long pause, but for like 5 minutes, so you might want to just skip right through that. But anyway, moving on. So I saw this article on Twitter from ReadFootball.com where I don't know who it was, there's no names, the best writers, whoever it is, in the game of arena football.
Yep, they had their. I'm seeing a panel. Adam Markowitz, who I've had the pleasure of working with, very good guy. Tim Capper, also longtime AFL reporter. Cedric Bonner, Tina Servasio, Pat O'Hara. So you had a lot of good TV crew in there. So they've assembled a good team for this.
Right. So what they did is they picked their midseason. They did a midseason award thing. Where they picked who's the MVP, Offensive Player of the Year, all that good stuff. And I decided I'm going to look into this. Me and Erik we'll look through each of them. What we're going to do is we're going to react. Do we agree? We disagree? And then we say who we think is the MVP, who's the Offensive Player of the Year, all that, all that good stuff. So we start with the MVP, and I agree 100%. Right at the gate, Randy Hibberd out of Tampa Bay is the MVP in this article. I can't disagree at all. There's been nobody playing better than him in the league. If he doesn't win MVP, something's wrong.
Well, the reason why I would pick Hibberd over Dan Rodabaugh is because Rodabaugh is performing as you would expect with his team. Hasn't really had to deal with injuries, core together, so they're marching on to a beat of a championship drum, just like last year. But Randy Hibberd, coming off of an ACL injury, completely new set of receivers, borderline new team, still completing 70% of his passes, 48 total touchdowns, and on a more unfortunate note, a little bit of a Markowitz jinx, 201 passes without an interception. I'm sorry. That, to me, speaks volumes in of itself. Although, yes, while they're subpar, I don't know why Arvell Nelson didn't get any consideration, because look at what's Cleveland done with him compared to without him their first two games.
That is true. Arvell Nelson is the Cleveland Gladiators. I mean, they went 0-2 starting Shane Boyd and Tanner Marsh. He comes in, they start 0-3, 0-4, but they have play better football with Arvell Nelson. And he leads the league in rushing as well. So there's something to consider.
Yeah, I mean, he'll probably finish third, but he needs at least some consideration instead of it just being a two-horse race. That, to me, teeny bit of a snub. Teeny bit.
I can agree with that. He's snubbed out of the MVP race. For sure. The other receiving votes, was only one of the guys that got votes besides Randy Hibbard. Dan Rodball from the Soul. No surprise there. Offensive Player of the Year. They have Joe Hills out of Tampa Bay. I do agree with that. I mean, I believe I said this 2 weeks ago on our last podcast. Joe Hills could possibly be the AFL MVP. But then you gotta remember, if there's no Randy Hibbard, there's no Joe Hills. So he can't win MVP because he needs somebody to throw to him. Offensive Player of the Year would probably be the next bet.
Especially, look at the competition just on his own team. Kendrick Ings, Lamarck Brown. That's what's giving Hibbert a boost to MVP, because he's got one all-league caliber player and two that are on the precipice, and he's turning that into the most
I do believe I've lost Eric. So I believe Eric was saying that he pretty much agrees that Joe Hills is pretty much the Offensive Player of the Year. I mean, the guy's caught receiving touchdowns 75 straight games, 3 away from either tying or breaking the record. Obviously, he's a big player on offense. Big player on offense. He's the key. Him and Ryan Hipper are the key of the Storm's success on offense. You got to give credit to Mark Brown here. Got to give credit to Kendrick Ings there. What if there's no Randy Hippard? And if there's no Joe Hills, there's no Tampa Bay Storm. We pretty much see the same team as we did last year. And that's something we don't want to see. With these two, Tampa is number 2 behind the Soul. Without them, they're behind the Valor, and that's saying something. That's really saying something if they're behind the Valor. So Joe Hills being Offensive Player of the Year, I can agree. I'm sure Eric does well if we ever get back in connection with him. Not sure what happened to him on his side of the mic. But I look forward to hearing from him again soon. Other receiving votes, Quentin Sims from Cleveland. That's a good one. I like that vote because Quentin Sims has been the second best player in Cleveland on Cleveland's offense, behind obviously Arvell Nelson, doing it all, running, passing. He is the team. Quentin Sims is also a big part as well. Also getting a vote, Arvell Nelson. Look at that. He doesn't get over MVP, but he gets a vote in Offensive Player of the Year. I don't get it. Doesn't make sense, but that's how it is. Now, Defensive Player of the Year, I'm a little confused because I don't really pay much attention to defense. Kareem Smith out of Baltimore. Smith leads the AFL with 7 sacks. Last year, the AFL leader in sacks, Jake Metz. See, with Jake Metz, he scored 8 touchdowns. He recorded 8 sacks the whole season. That was it. Just 8. In 16 games. Something like that. With Smith, he's already recorded 7. We're 9 games in. I'm not saying that the Smith guy is the next Jake Metz, because I believe Jake Metz made more highlights. He made more headlines than Kareem Smith has in Baltimore. But obviously that's a big part of defensive success. Having 7 sacks in 9 games. That's amazing. If he keeps it up, he's on pace for, 14 sacks? That would be an amazing feat. The last time a player had more than 10 sacks in the season was 2015. So no player did it last year. Jake Metz led with 8. All right, Eric's computer wound up shutting off, so hopefully we can get back on before the show ends. If not, I want to thank Erik for his contribution to the show. Always love having him on as my co-host. But the show must go on here. Kareem Smith, up there's Erik.
The wonders of modern technology. Right as I was getting a good flow and making a point, my computer decides to shut off.
That's so unfortunate. So we're gonna go back now. We're gonna sideshow. We're gonna go back, and we're gonna let Erik finish his point on Joe Hills being Offensive Player of the Year midseason.
Yes, as I was saying, Offensive Player of the Year, fantastic, but not MVP because Randy Hippert has taken an all-league caliber receiver and 2 others on the precipice and has turned them into, in my opinion, the most dangerous wide receiving trio in the league. Because even when Joe Hills has a quiet night, you can rely on Ings out of the backfield going in motion. Lamarck Brown, a little bit bigger, can kind of push people around. You can use him on some of your shorter plays. And Hills doing what he does, going deep, getting into the end zone however he can. So that's really what distinguishes being Offensive Player of the Year versus MVP in my mind.
These are all good points right there, as always, from Erik Watkins. And like I was saying when we lost you, the other receiving votes were Quentin Sims, and I feel like Quentin Sims, he is the second best player on the Cleveland offense behind the other guy who got a receiving vote for the Offensive Player of the Year, Arvell Nelson. So Arvell Nelson gets a vote for Offensive Player of the Year, but not MVP. I feel like he should also get a vote for MVP, as well as Offensive Player of the Year, and then he would win one of those awards.
Yeah, have him in consideration for both, because if he doesn't, we know Longshot's going to be an MVP, but I'm really glad that Rodaba is in more consideration for MVP other than Offensive Player of the Year, because I don't want this to be another year where the second best quarterback wins the second best offensive award. No, that does not sit well with me, given how talent-rich all of the teams are. Spread the wealth a little bit. Be what you would consider unconventional.
Right. So then I talked about the defense player, and this guy, I don't know who he is. I don't pay much attention to Baltimore. Kareem Smith, Chreem, from Baltimore. He has 7 sacks in 9 games. Not even 9 games. I felt that's very impressive. That's better than Jake Metz, who's now with the Buffalo Bills.
I mean,
so, yeah.
I can see that argument, because at times where the secondaries disappeared, Smith has been the main one to get pressure on opposing quarterbacks. And that's what's helped Baltimore in a lot of cases stay afloat. So I don't have too many problems with that one.
And I was just saying how Jake Metz had 8 sacks through, 16 games last season. This season, for just probably 7 games, Kareem Smith has 7 sacks. He's on pace to have at least 15 sacks this year. Be the first player since 2015 to have more than 10 sacks in a year.
Yeah, and if I remember right, Joe Sykes, this is getting into his kind of territory with what he did in Jacksonville. How he isn't in the league this year is beyond me, but you have someone else who's come and picked up the torch.
Yeah, that one stat right there tells me he is definitely a great candidate for Defensive Player of the Year mid-season. 7 sacks in about 7 games is very impressive for me.
It's very impressive just all around. When you're talking about similar pace to Joe Sykes and what he did setting the league record, you're onto something.
You know, this 7 sacks is not even a career high for Smith. His career high was during his rookie season in 2006 when he recorded 8 of them in a season. So he's pretty much having a career year. The other 2 receiving votes, Dwayne Hollis and Joe Gooseby from Philadelphia. Any thought on them?
Again, secondary staying together, doing what they do. I'm not surprised to see them getting votes, but at the same time, you're going to have one of those situations to where you're going to be splitting votes. And when you're in a split vote situation, that opens the door for a Kareem Smith to come right on in.
Mm-hmm. Good point. Next award, Rookie of the Year. This is an interesting one because I don't know who's a rookie and who's not. I really should do more research on this stuff. But they have Shane Carden as Rookie of the Year. Definitely. I mean, the guy's came in week 1 against Washington, and he has done great ever since.
Yes, he's still in position for the Brigade to be their franchise quarterback. The fact that in a situation where it's very easy to get to the playoffs, he's making them competitive, stretching plays, very, very good scrambling ability, on par with Arvell Nelson. I would love to actually see him run a little more at times, but he's growing into a good quarterback while having a fairly good season in the process. That's what you want out of your rookies.
And according to the article on RadioFootball.com, Carden has a great chance to become the first rookie quarterback since Kurt Rocco. Pardon me if I'm saying the last name wrong. And Brad Banks. And Brad Banks, both I guess in 2011, throw for 2,000 yards. He's on pace for that. Obviously, if a rookie hasn't thrown over 3,000 yards in 6 seasons now, and Carden's on that pace, that's a great reason to have him up for Rookie of the Year.
Yeah, and you look at Kurt Rocco, he was with New Orleans as they were coming back, and this was before or right after they were the Bossier Shreveport Battle Wings. So this is telling you where the league was in 2011 compared to where it is now, but the kind of situation for that franchise where things haven't been too hot, especially now that they no longer even exist, that tells you something as far as rookies and trying to grow them in the league. The fact that they put him to the Wolves and he's been holding his own, much more respect for him.
And they don't have to. It's not even close. Shane Carden's going to run Rookie of the Year. There is no other receiving votes. Everybody that voted in this article voted for Carden. It looks like a runaway for him.
As well as it should be. I mean, again, we saw instability beginning of the season at quarterback in Cleveland. Instability at quarterback going on in Washington. Baltimore turning to a first-year guy, and things are working out just fine.
Now, here's one, and this is the last one. This one I have a little problem with. Ron James coach of the year for Tampa? I don't think so. I mean, he had the second worst record in the league with Portland last year. Just now, the only reason he's coach of the year is because Randy Hippert's his quarterback, and he has Hall of Fame wide receiver Joe Hills on the team.
But, again, and I made this point early in the season, I want to see what Ron James can do when he has a team around him. When he has talent that he can guide and coach. Now he does. Look at where Tampa Bay is. Number one, you're starting to bring back a cornerstone franchise to glory. Look at where they were last year. Number two, you're taking advantage of a league that's set up. You have 2 expansion teams. One team that's the cornerstone of the latest iteration of the league. And you've got a team that's still trying to figure out something of their identity. You're expected to come in, take the reins, kind of lead them to a little bit of greatness. So far in the first half of the season, he has. And with all of those expectations and looking at the other coaches, I don't see why he wouldn't be coach of the year.
I just feel to be coach of the year, you have to have. I mean, I'm not saying that Ron James isn't coaching these players to be great, but Randy Hipper, whatever you say his last name, Joe Hills, does Cortez Stubb still on the team?
Mm-hmm.
So these kind of players, they already know what great is. They don't need a great coach. Like that's one reason I don't think Ron James should win coach. I think Clint Ozell deserves it because he coaches his players to be great, like Torres Jones. Yeah, he had the one-handed interception in the China Arena Football League and had done nothing since. But now he's with Philadelphia. He's doing pretty well. I believe that's because of Coach Ozell. So
I don't know. I mean, did you really expect Clint Ozell to drop off? I mean, he's got... How can I explain this? He's got the defending Arena Bowl champions. He's 7-0. He's now been to how many Arena Bowls just in the last few years? This is where Philadelphia should be. He's just maintaining the status quo. And Coaches of the Year, you don't get that award for just maintaining the status quo.
If I was voting in this article, I would have put a comeback Coach of the Year for Ron James because he went from a crap team to a great team. Coach of the Year, though, I guess you and I will. Go ahead.
Well, you'd think he came from a crap team in Portland, but where was Tampa Bay last year? I'm sorry, did they only win, twice? So you went from a crap team that you really had no control of making better to a crap team where you have a lot of control of making better and you make them better.
I guess you and I will have to agree to disagree on this one.
Yeah, we'll see. This is going to come down to one of those right at the very end of the season between these two. But they got a couple more showdowns coming up, thankfully, so that'll really help determine what happens.
Oh, yeah, and maybe if Ron James wants to bring a championship to Tampa, then I could reconsider. Maybe he could win Coach of the Year. But until then, it's Clint Ozell for me. So now that was that. That was the Midseason Awards brought to you by ArenaFootball.com and Adam Markowitz, Tim Capper, Tina Rossio. Everybody participated. Thank you for that. Very interesting article. Very good read. Go check it out. ArenaFootball.com. So this is we are now commercial free for the rest of the show. We're going to go right into Week 10's first game of the week. I believe it's the first game. Mm-hmm. And that is the Soul and the Gladiators game. They're meeting for the third time in 5 weeks, which is odd. But there's a reason for that. We won't go into it. So, the first meeting in Cleveland, the Soul won by 2. Then 2 weeks later, the Soul dominated the Gladiators in Philadelphia. It's a bad game to watch, bad game to be playing for the Cleveland Gladiators. I have a feeling this game, which is also in Philadelphia, the second one in 3 weeks, I have a feeling this is going to be like the first meeting. It's going to be a close game. The defense is going to – they're going to know how to get the route the ball, how to cover, Koli Namoku and all the receivers, and they're going to keep it close.
I'm going to have to disagree with you on this one. I think this one is going to be like the second game where the Soul won by 18. Now, as much as I said Clint also should not win Coach of the Year, the man knows how to coach. He knows how to prepare. He knows how to adjust. And he's coming off of a bye week with a home game against a team that he's already beaten soundly once this year and has already swept thus far, beating them twice. This is going to be 3 in a row, and it's not going to be pretty.
So Erik says it's going to be a blowout. I tell you it's going to be close. But here's the thing, though. Here's something I'm looking at. I get the Cleveland defense perform well against the mediocre Washington team, who has lost 6 in a row. But when it comes to this game against Philadelphia, the third time 5 weeks the teams are meeting, the defense has to take advantage of it. Because I've witnessed this. Raul Ball he's obviously a great quarterback, but I've seen a lot of off-target passes, a lot of overthrown passes, a lot of miscommunications, whatever it may be. I have a feeling Cleveland, their defense, they need to take advantage of that.
Okay, but just take Rayshon Kaiser out of it. He's one guy to where in that secondary he's shown he can make some plays. Who else? Because you need at least 2 good DBs to give yourself a chance in this league. Who else on that Cleveland defense can take advantage and can neutralize a receiver like potentially he can? I really don't know the answer to that question looking at this team. I don't.
That is a good point. I can't really think of anyone outside of Rayshon Kaiser. But I do know if Cleveland wants to keep it close, like I think they will, just because of the way the offense plays, and they'll have Colin Taylor back this week. He missed last week's game against Washington because of being at Shane Austin's wedding. Congratulations to Shane Austin, by the way.
Taking the plunge, good for him. Congratulations. He should be off enjoying his honeymoon.
Yes. But anyway, someone has to step up for that Cleveland defense if they want to be able to contain Philadelphia's offense. If not, I'm going to have to side with you. Unless Cleveland's defense can find a way to stop Philadelphia's offense from scoring every drive to get the ball, it may be a blowout after all.
It may be, because even if Cleveland doesn't step up on defense, then they're going to have to do on offense what they did last week. And again, score a touchdown almost every single drive. The Soul defense is not going to let that happen.
Well,
the numbers just speak for themselves. I mean, you have Gooseby and I don't see a lot of good coming from this one.
Well, we will see what happens this Saturday night, 7 p.m. Eastern at the Wells Fargo Center in Philadelphia. Any final thoughts on that game?
Cleveland's got to come out and throw the first couple of punches. Not just one. The first couple of punches. Get Philly on the ropes. Be more... To really complete the reference, be more Rocky against Clubber Lang and not Rocky against Drago.
Well, that's all I have for that one. So now we move on to our last topic of the night, and that is the Storm against the Valor. Like I said 2 weeks ago, before he faced Philadelphia, It's going to be a long game for Sean Brackett against this Storm defense. It's going to be a very long game.
Brackett's shown signs that he still has it in the AFL. He really does. Maybe the fact that it's Tampa Bay, he'll go closer to his performance that he had against Philadelphia. Does that mean they're going to win? No. Does that mean they could keep it close? Maybe. But the train's just going to keep rolling for the Storm. They're going to clinch a playoff spot. They're going to at least somewhat keep pace. Setting up another good Tampa Bay-Philadelphia matchup right around the corner.
Well, 2 weeks ago we were talking about how Brackett was going to have a long game, it's going to be a long game against Philadelphia. Then he goes out and throws 5 touchdowns. So maybe this week Brackett will once again prove us wrong, just for one game, maybe. And maybe he'll have another great game against this Tampa defense. But I really, again, like I said 2 weeks ago, I really don't think he's going to.
No, it's not just a question of him being a little off balance. It's a combination of him being off balance and having nobody to throw to. And this Tampa Bay defense, after last week, they're showing they're really hungry. They want to be the ones to kind of take all the focus away from Superman and Ings and everybody on the offense. They can do that. So it's good. If it's not ugly early, Washington may have a chance. But if it is, done.
Well, I do know one reason that, and this is definitely a big feeling here, why the Storm will blow up the Valor. That's because the Valor defense will have absolutely no, and I mean this, no shot of stopping Randy Hippard or Joe Hills. None at all.
No. Again, you have 9 touchdowns and 9 drives. Tampa Bay could turn that 10 for 10, 12 for 12. Then all of a sudden, you're going up against a team putting up 55, 60, 70 points, which is yet to happen this season. What are you going to do?
Exactly. So the Tampa Storm hosted Washington Valor this Saturday night at the Amalie Arena in Tampa. Again, Eric, that's all I have for that. Any final words before we close up the shop tonight?
This is a setup week. We're in week 10, and it's just setting up week 11.
Yes, pretty much. I am so looking forward to week 11. The Soul hosts the Storm in what I believe will be the Arena Full 30 preview. So, as Michael, I believe it's Michael Wilbon that said this on PTI, we will try to do better next time, Knuckleheads.
No, that was Tony Kornheiser. But close.
There we go. I knew one of them. I just don't know what it was. Either way, this is going to do for this week in the AFL. I'm Stephen and Erik. He's Eric Watkins. We'll definitely try to do better next time, Knuckleheads. Until then, enjoy marine football. Enjoy your weekend, or no, I will. And we'll see you next time.
Peace.